Hello, welcome to Mediocre Rumble Brothers. I am your host Udon here with Jordan, Corey, and Edwin, and we're here to talk about Pokemon Legends ZA. Very topical right now. We are definitely not like nearly 6 months late to the party on this one. But anyways, we've been wanting to talk about this for a while, but we all got it more or less on release. Jordan a bit afterwards, but scheduling conflicts, things happen, and we have to keep pushing it back and back and back and back. But we're not going to skip over it, especially because it's Pokemon. Pokemon Legends ZA released October 16th in 2025. So, like I said, about roughly 6 or 7 months ago at this point for the Nintendo Switch and the Nintendo Switch 2. It is the second game in the Legends series, which is probably not going to stop. But I mean, it's technically a spin-off series, but me and a lot of other people kind of consider it part of the mainline Pokemon because the amount of effort that goes in these things far surpasses most spin-off Pokemon games. And so this thing kind of had a lot to live up to because I thought Arceus was really awesome. I've actually heard a lot of opinions that people didn't like Arceus, and those people are wrong, so we don't listen to them. And so this thing had a lot to live up to, especially after some of the directs that came out prior to it, showing off like the real-time battling system and stuff like that, and the reintroduction of Mega Evolution, which was like the game's biggest selling point because we haven't had Mega Evolution in a Pokemon game since Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, I believe, which came out right after X and Y, which is the games that directly precede this one. So, anyways, before we jump into it, we're going to go around and just get a brief overview for everyone's kind of like general opinion of the game, and we'll get down to the nitty gritty later. But we'll start off with Edwin. Since you and me are probably the top Pokemon fans here, what's your general opinion about the game? How did you feel playing it, and how did you feel after you're done with it?
When I first started playing it, it was like for like the first like several days of actually playing it, I didn't have like that bad of a time with it. I was actually enjoying it. The story was a little bland. It was like for the most part, I didn't really understand exactly where it was going, other than just like, oh, become the very best. It was like, well, it was like, is there anything like stopping me from doing that? It's like all the other characters have like their own side quests, which I could give less, I care less about. But it's like I didn't hate most of the characters. It was like I only really hated Naveen because he was just like not that great personality wise. The rival, I forgot what his name was. The only issue, Urbane, yeah. The only issue that I had with him was his backstory, which I don't even think was concluded at all. So it just seems kind of pointless.
We'll get into it later, but but that's like post game content.
Okay, well, I don't remember any of that, but it's like I like the combat. The city is. I mean, I don't like being restricted in like just Lumio City. I enjoyed like the open worldness of the other Pokemon games. So it was like, yeah, I didn't like that it was less of an open world than the other ones, but the combat wasn't too bad. It was like it could have been a little better, but I'll explain that later.
Alrighty. Moving on. Jordan, being the least experienced Pokemon, and considering the last Pokemon game you played was Ruby, and you played Fire and Leaf Green with us here on the podcast, you kind of like jumped off into the deep end when it comes to all the additional types and Pokemon and Mega Evolution concept as a whole, not to mention the entire battling style changing. So, how did it feel to basically play an entirely different kind of Pokemon than you've ever been used to before?
It was a really good type of change for me. I was, used to the simple back and forth, take your turn kind of deal with looking at the back of a person, throwing their Pokemon out in the ground, and then having them battle it out in front of somebody. It was really slow paced, taking your turn kind of deal. This one being that everything is now that you're able to engage things, like kind of almost go up as like a special ops team where you can sneak up on people and hit them with a Pokemon. I thought that was really nice, and seeing that they had a different variety of Pokemon that I'm not used to seeing. I'm kind of the original guy, seeing everything from 100 to 50 Pokemon, and maybe up a little bit further than that since I got up to Ruby. But seeing all these different Pokemons was really cool. I was really happy to see like the alpha version. When you see like a Gyarados next to you, and you're like, that's pretty reasonable size. But then when you see the alpha, it's like, holy crap, it's really cool. It like almost gives you like that empowerment moment where you're just like ready to step on the field, and you see these big different varieties of Pokemon. and the characters and such that are also involved. It's pretty nice. I do like the music that's also involved. It's like a different type of speed that everything goes to as well. I definitely feel like the guiding system that they have on it is really easy to follow compared to like the old versions of Pokemon. So I think it's really good sense of pace for me, and have not been mad at it all. I actually liked the game. I went through and completed the whole thing. So it's definitely a different type of game for me, and I was really happy to be able to participate and play it.
I see. I'm interested hearing more from you as we go along, because you're not a person who has come to this game on the back of Scarlet and Violet, which is the last game in the series that came out, which was a complete travesty for like 90% of its content. So you jumping from basically good stuff to good stuff is kind of interesting, which I feel like I'll explain myself a bit more later, but I think this game gets away with a lot of stuff from the fans because it's coming off of the back of a game that was largely hated. It's more, the kind of like, oh, it's not complete dog shit. But anyways, Corey, how about you? What's your opinions on this game?
Overall, I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, it's not the greatest game I've ever played, but I I think my first play session was maybe like 3-4 hours, and I just kind of found myself getting lost in the combat system, which I'm sure that we'll get into that too. Story was kind of like whatever. I didn't really care that much. The town being small didn't bother me. I kind of like the because after playing Scarlet and Violet and seeing this giant empty open world, I was like, okay, finally a little bit of like keep it together here. They do have a nice little sewer system, rooftop system, and street level with parks to go like find Pokemon. I thought that it was going to be a little bit more limited, but I feel like it was dynamic enough to still maintain like my attention span to like run around and do stuff. And the way that the town slowly opens up as you progress the game was kind of nice. But like I did have a lot more fun playing it than I had playing Scarlet and Violet. So definitely middle of the road, but enjoyable. Like it's definitely if they take anything from this, it should be the combat system, honestly.
Now, I agree with you on a surface level. I have my own criticism about the combat system, especially when it comes to late game and what could possibly be done with it. You talking about, like, yeah, it's definitely better than Scarlet and Violet. Like I already explained myself. I think I have a theory about that, but I'm largely with you. But for my own opinion on this game, huge Pokemon fan. I was on like a roller coaster with this game in terms of like when it was being previewed. At first, I was pretty skeptical, and then the more they showed about it, I was getting more and more into it. I was like, okay, no, I'm kind of getting this. I'm kind of liking this. The game, I pre-ordered the game. The game comes out. I played it quite a bit that opening weekend, and I was kind of enjoying myself. The story, I feel, is just complete nonsense. I basically hate like 90% of the characters. The story makes no sense, and no, I don't care about any of it. The gameplay itself, it was good for a long time, but especially when you get to the late game, and the more I've had to like sit and contemplate this game, not playing it, it's kind of like when you finish a good book, instead of this time it's like a mediocre book, and you're like, you just start thinking about it, and you start thinking about it deeper and deeper, and you're like, maybe that wasn't as, start thinking about criticisms. I still largely like this game, but as I was explaining to Corey just before we were going to start recording, I kind of came to this realization that I've played like every single mainline Pokemon game at least one extra time, like another playthrough. I don't think I'll ever do that with this game. I don't think I'll have any desire to. Maybe I'll discover exactly why as we're talking, but it's more just like I don't have a endless list of complaints, but I definitely don't have a shallow bucket of complaints either. It is still better than Scarlet and Violet, but Scarlet and Violet still has actually things over this game, in my opinion, that make certain aspects of it better that was taken away in ZA and it wasn't compensated by something else. But anyways, so it being a Legends game, what does being a Legends game mean? So we don't have any idea, considering that it's the second game in the Legends series, and all Arceus established is that it's kind of like a Pokemon game, except we're just going to do some nutsy stuff, right? Some a little bit combat system, difference, more focus on like exploration rather than like just get badge, get badge, get badge, go to Elite Four, win game. It's fun trivia about this game. So there was like this massive leak of Pokemon data last year. I think it was at the beginning of 2025. And according to those leaks, this game was supposed to be set in the Johto region, so in gold and silver versions. And the purpose of it was to be released around the same time as Gold and Silver's anniversary. And it was supposed to be another like 2-game, like Pokemon Legends Arceus, or Pokemon Legends Ho-Oh and Pokemon Legends Lugia. And again, it was supposed to be a taken place in the past, like proto Pokeballs before there was like really even trainers or anything, kind of like Arceus was. But then for whatever reason, it was changed to X and Y, which came out on the 3DS, and it was made modern day and scaled back to just Luminos City, which was the main city in X and Y versions. And the other thing was that, I'll get into that later, but it's like, I find that a like wasted potential. I was really disappointed when I found that out. I mean, like it's actual leaks, like it isn't like, rumored or anything. That was their plan. I don't know why they scrapped it. I kind of wish they stuck with it. Now, the modern day setting isn't terrible, but we'll break that down later. For now, I'm just going to give us a very brief overview of the story, since that kind of breaks down how the game loop goes. So this game, as I just said, is set in the Kalos region, which is from Pokemon X and Y. The game is set a few years after those events in Pokemon X and Y, and the plot is largely dependent on things that happened in those 3DS games, to the point where if you haven't played those games, unironically, a lot of stuff's kind of going over your head, which, I mean, again, you're not really missing a whole lot, but some of stuff is just kind of like, just take my word for it, bro, because you didn't play through it. So you, the protagonist, visit Luminos City for some reason. We have no idea why you're here. You get involved with this team of trainers called Team MZ, who I guess their purpose is to just kind of help out with problems in Luminos City, because you're recruited by your rival of the game, Urbane, or Urbane if you chose a female trainer, and then she has a different name if you chose a male trainer. But they're probably like the most boring and nothing character in the entire game. I'm not going to go into a breakdown of the characters and stories. Just take my word for it. But it's pretty bad. So you get involved in this Team MZ. So you're going around helping people, right? But you also get involved in this Battle Royale tournament, right? So what this tournament is, which was like kind of like the big selling point during the game's promotion, was you start out at rank Z and climb to rank A by participating in almost like Pokemon Trainer Fight Club at night. And you face high-level trainers to rank up each time. And the purpose of getting to rank A is that the biggest corporation in Luminos called, bear with me here, I hate this name, Quasartico. I have no idea how to pronounce that, and I hate that word. And if anyone else knows, that is not red underlined in Microsoft Word. I don't know if that's a real word, but I hate it. So they are hosting this tournament. If you get to rank A, you get a wish, which is kind of silly, which also kind of reminds me of what was the game. What was that fighting game where you fought to become the leader of the corporation? What was it? Help me out here.
Tekken? Yeah, the Iron Fist tournament.
Yeah, Tekken. Kind of reminds me of that in a little bit. Yeah, kind of reminds me a little bit of that.
I would also accept Twisted Metal.
Yeah. Kind of the same concept. You just fight each other till one left standing, and you basically become rich and powerful or whatever you want, because the Amazon power level like corporation in this universe can just grant wishes apparently. So you not only are you helping out Team MZ, you're participating in this tournament, and then rogue mega evolutions start happening. So because of the events in X and Y, mega energy is starting to infect the Pokemon of Luminos City, and they're randomly mega evolving without the use of mega rings or trainers, which is a big deal. And they lead into these boss fights that you do as you progress the story. So that's like the main kicker, and you're supposed to try and figure out the problem of this mega energy and how to stop it. As the story goes on, you keep ranking up. You meet all kinds of different characters, like Kanari, who, I'll talk about her later. And then also other organizations like the Rust Syndicate, which is basically like Luminos's mafia, and apparently the only people who give a crap about anything around here. And it all culminates with you fighting the giant Eiffel Tower in the middle of the city, and then the game's main story ends. There's a bit of post-game content to the game, but that's largely the story. I am not breaking down the entire story because it is completely pointless and frivolous, and I'm just not talking about it. That's all you really need to know about the story, really. We're going to be talking about the gameplay mostly, because that's where we can really criticize it. I mean, if I wanted to do it, I could do an entire breakdown why that story is terrible, but characters are all bland, story's bland, nothing makes sense, and I hate it. So, story to one side. Unless some of you guys already told your opinion of the story. Pretty much everyone here doesn't give a crap about it, so I'm not going to ask your opinion on it because we're all going to be sitting here like no one cares. I don't care. But anyways, we'll talk about the game now. We'll talk about the superficial stuff first. So the looks of the game, the graphics, animations, textures, the sound, the music. How do we all feel about these aspects of the game? I think you already said it, Jordan, but you like the music. I will start with you. I've already addressed you. So what did you feel about the because you played this on, because you got a Switch 2, so you got the Switch 2 version. How do you feel playing it? Yeah, how do you feel like playing it? How the game, how do you feel about 3D Pokemon? Because you've only ever played pixelated Pokemon up to this point. So how do you feel about Pokemon in a 3D environment, and how everything looks and feels as you're exploring the city?
Yeah, I actually loved it a lot. It was really sweet to be able to see a 3D world open instead of just seeing over a little tiny, I don't know, like a little tiny character. Because of course, you're playing Game Boy Advance or anything like that, so it's like a really huge change of scenery, and the music is great. I actually like the music. Playing the Persona 5 game itself, for some weird reason in that game, I can't remember exactly where in that game it was that I was playing in Pokemon's Legend ZA, but there was just this hint of music that just reminded me of playing Persona 5, and I just thought it was really cool. Like, the music is actually really chill. It's not like that type of music where you hear it once and it's like nice, but then you kind of get tired of it. I really actually didn't have any issues with the music constantly reoccurring in the background. It was actually a really good sense of music where I could just keep hearing it and never get tired. So to be able to hear that alongside with the beautiful colors and the character designs, what they have, it was really cool to see the new introduced Mega Evolutions and everything. It's really a nice change of scenery for sure.
And I enjoy that opinion. It's kind of interesting because it's like, so not a lot of people made that jump from so viciously from from still pixel art to 3D. We had this like transition of still pixel art to animated pixel art to basic 3D on the 3DS, and now we're like console level of 3D graphics. The question was, how do you feel about the looks of the game, graphics wise, and the sound of the game, the superficial stuff? How did everything look and feel to you as you're moving about the city and the battles and stuff?
Well, it definitely runs better than Scarlet and Violet, but as for running on the original Switch, I'm not sure about that part, but I'm pretty sure we all played on the Switch too. But it definitely runs really well. It doesn't look as nice as it doesn't look as nice as Sword and Shield, but it still does look very good. I think probably, in my opinion, the best looking Pokemon game is definitely the Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but it's a slightly different art style. But overall, the look and feel of the game, just moving around, it was all very nice. So I can't really complain about that.
Alrighty. And Corey, how do you feel about the art design and the sound design of this game?
I know a lot of people online were very kind of frustrated with the 3D graphics, but I mean, I like it. I mean, it's stylized. I wasn't buying this because I wanted a realistic game. I think they have a pretty solid use of textures, and the character is cool. I like the main character. The outfits that you get for them is much better than all of the like school uniform stuff from the last game. The readability of stuff is like, I didn't have any frame drops. Everything was just super smooth, and I mean, I'm playing it now while we're talking about it too, and I'm playing it on handheld, which I never usually play my Switch handheld unless I'm traveling, of course, but it doesn't happen terribly often. And so seeing it running still really smooth is kind of nice. And yeah, I mean, no overheating or any sort of weird graphical hiccups. Just like Jordan said, the audio is great. The music is fun to listen to. Pokemon usually has pretty solid music too. Visually, I like it. I think it's a really good looking Pokemon game.
Yeah, I'm mostly there. When you mentioning the people criticizing it, I think the thing about it is, and this is my criticism with it, the best looking parts of the game are the character models, and the Pokemon models are the best looking things. They have good shading, good colors, they don't look like polygonal messes or anything. Have good animations. I think people's complaints stem from the environment itself, and it's more like what they didn't do that's the biggest problem. Because if you're going to restrict us to just this city, a city, by the way, that according to the map is separated by districts, but you couldn't tell in any district you're in where you are just by looking around you, because the entire city looks the same. And I think it's the complaint that the architecture is very flat and boring. There's not a lot of details in the environment. Some of you guys have it open in front of you. If you go back to your hotel room in Hotel Z and go to your hotel room, which I know no one does because it's pointless, but if you look in your room, that's the level of detail people were expecting, or people should expect, from the entire game. Like, there's just stuff in there that's the only purpose is to be set dressing, and it's just to look nice, but it makes the world feel lived in, makes it look more, not necessarily realistic, but believable, like people are living here. This is a weird comparison, but I recently played Resident Evil 3 Remake, and I spent probably about 10 or 15 minutes just wandering around Jill's apartment looking at stuff, because the amount of detail they put into the environment, and they can afford to do that because Resident Evil 3 is mostly on rails for, no, not necessarily on rails, but there's small areas that they can afford to take time to put details in to make these places look believable and lived in, like this could be some place that exists. And that's largely my criticisms with the environments of this game, is that the city is flat, the city is boring, the colors are fine, but it doesn't look real. It looks like I'm wandering around like a toy box, I guess, like almost like a model of a city, right? When you're looking top down and you're trying to like figure out a city planner. Exactly.
Yeah, as I'm looking right now in the center, like where you have the final ending battle, you have all those high level Pokemon. When you look at like the sides of all of the walls and such, where all like the grass is, everything, it's all flat. There is no really like actual detail to believing that this is actually standing outside of all the concrete. It looks like they're all the same exact, the same exact detail as flatness, and it doesn't seem like they actually put any real charm into that, which is kind of sad, me looking at it right now.
Yeah, and it sucks, but it's like, if you're going to restrict us to this one area, that should give you time and energy to put more effort into details in the environment. I mean, I think Arceus's maps have more detail, and granted, there's no cities in that one, but just a natural environmental feel. They have like caves and mountains, ruins. Like, Arceus's maps are way more detailed, and there's several of them that are all like maybe a half the size of Luminos City. So it's mostly of like what they didn't do. It's almost laziness in a way. Like, they should have been able to make the city pop, make it vibrant. We can only be around here, make it look different. Each area should almost be like, not necessarily an entirely different art style, but the colors should shift up a little bit. Maybe a bit of change in art style. Like, maybe change it to like, oh, this is the training district, this is the art district, this is like the cooking district,
Yeah, I would do very well. I think it would give it a lot more character that way if you did split the districts up that way, because it would also cater to how Pokemon kind of treats all of the towns in any Pokemon you play anyways, where they're all kind of like unique towns, because you're going to these districts to fight gym leaders essentially, and it's like, how does this area of town reflect into this gym leader? Been kind of nice. The only gym leader that's kind of reflected is the freaking the construction lady.
And she's not even a construction lady. She's just in a construction area. She's a streamer. She just works out of a closet. Like, and in a game like this, for this limited area that's separated by districts, I should be able to just look. I should just be able to look around, not pull up my map, just look around, and I'll be able to immediately tell which district I'm in just by this stuff around me.
Yeah, you could eat some loading screens.
I mean, that it literally looks exactly the same as it did in the X and Y series. So it's like, granted, you can go out of the city, but still, it's like you can't really tell where you're going. And I even get lost, and I played that game several times. But yeah, this in X and Y and ZA, the city pretty much looks exactly the same, except for the wild areas, which, as you said, are pretty flat. I think the one that's like the most unique looking is probably the one with the river around it, where all the magic carp and starmies are.
Yeah, and even then, that one's like an aggravating thing to traverse, because you have to like go in and out to get to the other side, and it's really aggravating. But yeah, even when you're comparing, yes, it looks like the 3DS one, but again, the 3DS one, number one, it's a 3DS, so they have limitations. Number two, X and Y is an entire region. Luminos was just one part of it. So it's like, I don't mind if they just, and this is years on. They could have just easily been like, yeah, in a couple of years, we renovated the entire city. Why not? Fuck it. So like it's just not It's just not, it's what they didn't do that's bad, not necessarily what's there, because it's like you had so much potential and had so much opportunity here that they just didn't take advantage of.
I mean, they're going to sell you some trim sheets and stuff, but it seems like, I don't know, they're sacrificing poly count for performance on this. And they don't have like parallaxing windows and stuff. With like Spider-Man does this, and some other games they have like full on mock interiors of rooms that you're running by, because there's so many windows in this town. And I wouldn't mind eating loading screens if I went from district to district, as if the buildings were a little bit like denser poly. And it's not like they're complex shapes. There's some arches, but even if you didn't change the visual style of the buildings and just kept what it is here and then extrude out some of these details like the pillars and trims and window seals and stuff like that, like it would just bring so much more depth to the town, especially with the lighting being caught on these. Because I know they have normal maps and stuff, but it's like you got it here just a little bit more, and people would have probably said like, "Wow, this is an amazing looking Pokemon game." Like that's all that's different. Yeah. Huh?
Yeah, like they have the basis.
Yeah, the best that they could do is the Legends Arceus, where it's just like large sectional areas, but they went down the road for open world, and granted this is smaller than Scarlet and Violet, but it still could have been better. Even if it was a smaller scale, they still like missed the mark on that with like, well, it's a smaller area, but still like not as much detail either. Like granted the people and the Pokemon look nicer, but I was like that's pretty much the thing that they focused on the most.
Yeah. And there's not a lot of vegetation, so you're not losing any performance on that because it's just stone sidewalks and stuff. So you don't got like endless Breath of the Wild grass and stuff that you have to worry about. And there's not a lot of water dynamics either because there's just a little river that kind of runs around the town and some ponds. But
We've seen what the Switch 2 can do, and while this game I think was roughly on like a hunt, damn it, I looked up the budget of it, but it compared to some game budgets, it was not much, which is weird when you think about it's the strongest IP in the entire world when it comes to sales and revenue. It's more like they had everything modeled out, and now it's the time to add the details to the city, and then they ran out of time and had to ship it out. So it's like they just need to take that one step further to make this environment amazing, but it just falls flat, which is a real shame. All right, we got to move on to our next topic. So now we'll talk into the real meat and potatoes, the battle system. So the battle system, the main component of the game next to the catching Pokemon system, is a biggest change from any other Pokemon game, even Legends Arceus, which still had turn-based combat for the most part, which a little bit of tweaks here and there. But this game has real-time combat in the sense that when you're fighting either a wild Pokemon or a trainer, you are free to use the environment to your advantage, as in like you can dive behind cover to avoid some attacks. You have a dedicated dodge button in order to dive out of the way of wild Pokemon's attacks. And your Pokemon will follow you around so you can kind of guide and control them, and you can actually manually dodge other characters' attacks on you rather than relying on some kind of, the random accuracy mechanic in the turn-based games. And wow, and all your moves are cooldown based. Speed determines how fast they recharge. Status ups and down moves are a bit different. Some status afflictions are a bit different because they just don't translate well from turn based to how it works now. This was like the biggest selling point next to the Mega Evolution, which is also part of this, but that's its own separate thing. But yes, you can also Mega Evolve, and so that being the case, how does everyone feel about the battle system as a whole? Like, do you want this to continue? What are your criticisms of it? What's your favorite parts about it? We'll start with you this time, Corey. What do you think about the battle system? Because I think you probably have the most positive opinion about it here. Maybe you and Jordan. So go ahead.
I like it. I mean, I like it a lot because I like the kind of controlling the field, the position of me as the trainer, trying not to get knocked out by the Pokemon, because Pokemon can also aggro you depending. I mean, I feel like it only kind of happens in boss fights for the most part, or if you don't have a Pokemon out, like alphas will attack you if you're close. But I like the speed of the combat because depending on your move sets, I mean, obviously, if you got turn-based classic Pokemon, you got to go into the screen, just do the thing where you like send out a Pokemon, throw it out there, it lands. Then you choose your super effective move and blah, blah, blah. And I know that's a little bit more dated, but with this one, I'm just like, go over there and bait that Pokemon to death. And it'll just, if he's not paying attention, I'm going to get a critical. And I like that aspect. I like that it's more open and like happening right now live. And I'm a huge fan of turn-based games. Like I'm also currently playing through like Octopath and stuff, and it's for someone who's played older Pokemon games and mostly the newer ones. I do prefer this playstyle for this because it's just a lot more fun to control the Pokemon on cooldowns than it is to.
Yeah, and that's I agree with most of it. I'll break it down a bit more later. But Edwin, how about you? Coming from turn based to this, which do you prefer? And do you have problems with this combat system? And if so, what are they?
Well, the turn-based and this free roam combat style, it was like I don't hate it. It was like it's good, but I feel like it could have been better. It's just two different play styles that you have to like actually strategize differently. I do feel that the one way it could have been better is if during an actual Pokemon battle, is it that you could control the Pokemon instead of it just following the trainer around? Because honestly, just controlling the trainer during a Pokemon battle and then the trainer being able to dodge and all that is kind of useless. And also how janky it is for the Pokemon to, when you use a move, it automatically like goes a little bit, a few feet in front of you into a little circle spot, and then it does its move. That is probably the most jankiest thing I've ever seen in this game, and it was extremely aggravating, especially in like really narrow areas, and it was very annoying to try and work with the mega battles. But like during the mega battles, it is important for you to control the trainer so you can dodge out of moves because they actually hurt you, unlike in regular Pokemon battles. So it's like in that instance, this combat actually makes sense. But during regular battles, it should have just been you controlling the Pokemon because they already did it in the DLC for Scarlet and Violet. You can play as the Pokemon, so I don't see why this couldn't have worked either on this one. And also, I guess one way that the Pokemon battle would have been more fun is if it wasn't just like for like as everyone agreed on, there's like that Lumio City is very flat. I guess this would also count towards just being flat as well. Is like everywhere you would fight is pretty much flat as well. But if like in the Pokemon anime, there's like some obstacles and like jagged rocks that Pokemon would go behind to like actually take cover from attacks and such things like that. So it's like if you have that much free movement to move your Pokemon around, that was like having like obstacles to like actually take cover from attacks, even breakable objects. I was like that would make the combat a lot more interesting.
Yeah, you're kind of hitting on a lot of stuff that I was going to talk about. And God help you in the few instances you do get into battles where the Pokemon are in two different vertical heights, because that's when the pathfinding becomes the worst thing ever. Because the Pokemon are basically brain dead in terms of their pathfinding. It's really aggravating. This system needs some TLC. I largely am glad that you said it. I'm not the only one going to be here hating all day, but it's like it was cool, but it's like one step away from being really awesome in the sense that like I agree with you. I don't know how I would do it. I don't necessarily want to control the Pokemon, but it would be nice that if we didn't have to take up a move slot, but you just had a separate button. In fact, as you said, dodging for the trainer is only useful when you're encountering wild Pokemon or doing the boss fights against the Mega Evolutions. In trainer battles, it's useless because those Pokemon aren't going to hurt you. So why not just make it to where that button will let your Pokemon dodge? And some God help me, I'm about to say this, make it like Dark Souls with iframes for your Pokemon's dodge. And that way you can manually tell them when to dodge, and it would be actually way more useful, rather than just kind of like jankily like leading them around on this like invisible chain almost, trying to get them to dodge attacks. And some attacks just straight up can't be dodged, and it's just kind of like arbitrary which ones are and which ones aren't. Some have projectiles, some have travel time, some just instantly hit you no matter where you are. Whether they can see you or not doesn't matter, and those are the best moves because you can't dodge them unless you have protect or something. So The system, yeah, it's interesting. I'll keep going when I bring it around to myself. But Jordan, kind of same question to Corey. Based on your experience with the turn-based combat of the older games and this one, which one do you prefer?
I do prefer this one, definitely. The taking turn system back then, I guess, because when you're young, you're learning technology as you go, and PlayStation, all that stuff coming out later on. I was still a young little lad coming through it. So playing on Game Boy and such, it was a lot easier to be able to pick up a game and play it. And I kind of figured that was kind of the whole motion of it, was try to get younger kids involved to play the game so it'd be simple and not complex with the buttons and movement and such. So just being able to have a stationary target being attacked and you're taking your turns and gives you plenty of time to make your decision on what move you want to do. But as you start to get older, I at least on my end, being through constant different games throughout my years and now being into this, it's a lot much more better to actually be in the fray, if you will. Like, you're constantly having to make a decision quickly and you have to be on your toes. So moving around, dodging and such is really cool. My only thing that I have, and it is kind of what I'm trying to figure out myself, is when I was playing the game on the ZA version, and it was, at the time I was like, wow, this is really interesting how you're able to move around a lot more freely than, of course, being stationary the entire time. My only thing that was a gripe of mine. Yes, it was the idea that there would be times where you're trying to just go about your day and then you get aggroed, and it's not you, the Pokemon, it's you as the trainer, and you're getting killed. That I was kind of getting annoyed of, and I kind of understand it makes it a lot more interesting versus just being just the Pokemon going into it. I would just be thinking it rather, when you're out there going about catching Pokemon, it makes sense this way because it's a lot more fast paced. Because I could understand that if you were just like, okay, I want to play as a Pokemon and I want to be just the Pokemon itself, it's going to take a lot more time to be able to have that switching back and forth, and it'll probably be quite annoying. But I was kind of thinking like the whole Pokken kind of thing, where when you had specific events that were stationary, or not stationary, but were special, that you were dealing with a Pokemon trainer, like a gym battle or boss battle, something that would be completely different than the average running around catching Pokemon deal, that you'd possibly be able to go in as seeing basically your Pokemon itself rather than the trainer. Because I don't know, I'm kind of like stuck in a hard place at this, because I understand I shouldn't keep myself involved with the anime or anything because they're not the same thing, they're separate. But I just don't like the idea that usually in Pokemon battles, when you're seeing it traditionally, the person throws the Pokeball in the center of the ring and then it's just the Pokemon going at it. It's not the trainers getting involved. So I'm kind of like, it's hard for me to just say like, okay, I'm going to be running around with my Pokemon, just staying right behind them the entire time. I would like to have thrown the Pokemon in the center of the arena and then watch my Pokemon, me controlling the Pokemon individually, doing all these different things. Like, what Udon was talking about, like being able to time things where they shoot a blast and you could hit a button just right and you could dodge out of the way. Make it more interesting, make it more cinematic in a sense where it's consistently keeping you engaged. And it's just like, it's a different feel versus I'm doing the same thing over and over. Even though when I'm having these special events playing with the Mega Evolution, I still feel like it's kind of the same thing anyways, because I'm still dodging and trying not to get killed, which is what I was doing in the first place when I'm trying to just catch regular Pokemon. Depending upon how they are, if they're alpha, they're more aggressive, so they're going to attack you a lot of times too. So I feel like there should be some sort of change to when you're doing a boss battle. It's not the same as when you're regularly just running around catching Pokemon. That's just my only thing. But how I perceive the game itself compared to the old ones, it's a lot better in my opinion. I definitely like the feel. It's a lot more smoother, and it definitely kind of, like I said, it keeps you more engaged versus I'm just waiting and waiting. And when you had those random startups, when you run into a Pokemon, it stopped, the screen would have to change and fade out, you had to go into a battle screen. It just took too much time. This is a lot more fluid, so I'm definitely more happier with this.
The system definitely has its advantages, but for my part, to be kind of I guess I'm more in line with Edwin than you guys, and I completely understand how, like, on the surface this seems like it would be a good way to go forward. And quite frankly, if the system got a good amount of TLC from the developers and it was developed more, I'd be on board with it. But as it is right now, I still vastly prefer the turn-based combat, because my opinion also is coming from the perspective of a person who has 100% of this game. I have like 180 hours. I think actually it's pushing 200 at this point. But it's like I've done every side quest. I've done everything post game. I've done the entire DLC. I've completed both Pokedexes. And I can tell you, late game battling just becomes a fight of who can one shot the other person faster. Because, this is partially just the game's fault because, of course, Pokemon trainers level cap is like 60 something, 60, 70, and your Pokemon can go up to level 100. So, of course, at some point, you're just going to be, every fight's just going to be you one-shotting everything. But when the game revolves around you keep getting in fights, it just gets really, really boring after a while. Whereas, like, past Pokemon games, you can still do the Battle Tower, which is, like, significantly difficult that scales your Pokemon down to be on the par with your opponent so you can actually have a challenge. It needs work. The Edwin honestly largely said a lot of my criticisms about it, but yeah, pathfinding's terrible. The combat gets really dull and repetitive after a while. It just because, like I just said, it becomes a fight of just who can hit who first with a super effective move, and you just win. Stat moves, as far as like attack ups and downs, defense ups and downs, are kind of worthless because why would I spend time doing that? Because while I'm doing that, I'm actively getting punched in the face. It's not like in the older games where it's like I'll use iron defense and raise my defense, and then I'll get hit. But because I raise my defense, I'm going to take less damage. It's like when I say use iron defense as he's using it before the effect actually takes place, that Pokemon's already punching mine in the face, so it doesn't matter. I'm already taking that damage. So it makes like status moves like that useless. And some status afflictions like paralysis, sleep. Really, the only status affliction that's even worth anything is burn and poison because it just does damage over time. It's like confusion seemingly does nothing. Paralysis is only a minor inconvenience. Sleep also is just a minor inconvenience. It's returning back to where all Pokemon is like you just want move variety. It's like every Pokemon of yours is going to have like 4 moves. Each one's going to be a different type, and that's basically all you got to do. No status moves, no buffing moves, just attack moves of different types. That's how you play this game. And I'm not talking about PvP today, but that's also a complete mess. It's just everyone's just dogpiling each other. There's no strategy or anything. Just hit whoever's weakest and you win. That's how you win online in this game. But yeah, I don't like it. I think it can be great, but kind of like how the environment with Luminos, it's like 1 or 2 steps away from being excellent. But as it is right now, it's just kind of mediocre at best to me. I actually, after playing Fire Red and Leaf Green, when they re-released those, I'm like, yep, I still vastly prefer this system to the ZA system. It was fun for a while, but maybe that's what the Legends games are supposed to be. They're just supposed to be fun for a while, and then we move on to something else. I would like it to be more, but again, we have to keep moving on. I'm not going to get too in-depth on Mega Evolution because everything that involves Mega Evolution also involves the battle system. You charge up your Mega Meter, and then you can Mega Evolve most of the Pokemon in the game. Some Pokemon can't Mega Evolve, and makes you wonder why they're even here. Because Mega Evolution is such a big part of the game, especially when it comes to boss battles. But yeah, you can Mega Evolve Pokemon, and trainers, random trainers, not just boss trainers, can Mega Evolve Pokemon too in the late game, which is interesting. But again, it's just like, oh, wow, a Mega Evolve Pidgeot. Use Rollout. Oh, it's dead. That's it. It's like, even if Mega Evolve doesn't matter. Everything just turns into a one-shot game. But anyways, moving on from the Mega Evolution, the battling. Well, let's talk about the movement, the exploration, because that is a really big part of this game. So because we're stuck in this city, there's a lot of parkour around the city, right? But how do we parkour around the city? With your cell phone, I guess. It's really stupid. So how they facilitate this, right? So I don't really reference Assassin's Creed for a lot of things, but the first Assassin's Creed kind of figured out how parkouring systems should work in a video game. You can scale mostly everything. You can run along mostly everything. Moving up a wall is very intuitive. You kind of understand why you can't jump some places. Sometimes you can. It's not perfect, but everyone knows how like traversing a city feels in Assassin's Creed when it comes to climbing up walls and balancing yourself on stuff and like that. Now picture that, but the worst version possible. And that is that is ZA's movement in this game. So how they justify this is that Luminos City is kind of undergoing construction, like improvements. So therefore the justification is there's a bunch of scaffolding everywhere. Now, this isn't a free movement system. There are very distinct ways you need to get up to places, and you can kind of jankily get places you're not supposed to be if you're lucky. But most of the time it's like you have to go up this way. There's no other way up here. Now you have the scaffolding you can climb. You have these little stupid elevators that break your body down to the molecular level and teleports you to the roof of a freaking building, which is weird. But it's just bad. I don't like the exploration and movement in this game. Now, you do this to get to rooftops where a bunch of Pokemon are exclusively located, are the rooftops. But you also get these colorful screws, which are like this collectible that you get that you use to exchange for actual buffs in the game when it comes to catching power, your own trainer's health, your defense, and stuff like that. So they're actually useful, and I've gotten all of them. And let me tell you, it's not fun. But I think the movement is very jank. But I'll get into more detail when I come back around to me. So, Edwin, what do you feel about how movement works in the city, how exploring the actual place works moving around?
I mean, in the beginning, it wasn't like that bad, but then when I had to get to like really specific areas, it just started becoming a huge pain. And exploration in general was just annoying. Not even like obviously getting up on the rooftops was like the worst of it, but also and like in every even in like the N, X, and Y, you have roller skates and a bike, but you don't have either of those things. But so it's just like just getting around everywhere. It's like if you don't want it to take forever, just like fast travel to that point. But like getting across those big empty streets, just all you can do is run and or just like go a Zelda route and just dodge roll everywhere to like make it visually faster. But just getting it was like just getting around Lumios was such a pain. It was very slow. It was aggravating. It's like the elevators aren't in on every building, and sometimes you have to go from one building across the street from another one, but it's like not as easy. So you got to look at the map and see. It was like, can I actually make that jump or not? And it was like, as you said, you can go through some jank to try and get through it, which I tried my best, but I still it was mildly convenient.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And it's not even like Dark Souls where it's like you go through the rigmarole and then at that area you can like unlock a shortcut. No, anytime you want to get to certain places, like fast travel here, then go to this elevator on this building to use a scaffolding to cross this other building, then use that building to jump to this building, and then you can get to that building. And that's the only way you're able to get up there.
Yeah, and like 70% of the scaffolding like doesn't even reach all the way to the roof. So you're just climbing that thing for no apparent reason. It was like you got all the items from it, and now that scaffolding is useless for the rest of the game.
And now it's just an eyesore. It's ugly. It's I hate the scaffolding is so bad. But anyways, pass it to you, Jordan. How did you feel exploring the city?
I liked it at first because again, it was something that I was not used to. First of all, just running around and going from being on land the entire time to not being able to go up in buildings was kind of cool. But then I realized the limitations that came with it. It was like the parkouring system was really broken. It did not feel like you literally could do anything you wanted to do. You would have to go up a certain way, and it would only allow you to go up a certain way once you unlocked that certain way. You just have some crazy little side missions to fight some sort of ground Pokemon because the elevator won't work unless you fight this thing. And then this electric Pokemon turns on this thing to get you up there. And I was just very confused by it after I was just like, okay, I've been through this enough. Now I still cannot get where I want to go because I have to be able to follow this specific way to make it happen. And you got flying Pokemon, you got all these different types of Pokemon that literally clearly could fly anywhere, but you can't go anywhere without these specific types of things. And going up there, and just imagine where you have only one ladder that you can get up to, and you have to go around an entire city block to get to this one specific ladder. And you just so happen to fall by accident. And now you have to take your ass all the way back around and redo it again. So it's just like, come on, this is not fun at all anymore. And literally when you're trying to look for certain Pokemon that are on specific buildings that you're going to have to go do that, it's really monotonous and really stupid. And I was more happier to be finding the Pokemon that was on the ground, and it would keep me from having to do these stupid things because they were just placed in very odd places. And I would be really wishing that they had better design on how things were going to work instead of being so limited. Because again, it really turned a really fun experience into a really shitty one, like really quick.
Yeah. I did. Corey, are you going to be the black sheep that's like, I hated Assassin's Creed and I love how you can't do anything in this game? What do you feel?
I think the biggest complaint that I had overall was like, why can't I jump? Is it because you want me to do the thing where I walk at something for an auto jump? It would just, I don't think it would break the game. As far as like traveling around on a bike, I mean, you could theme it, I guess, give him rollerblades or something, but his movement speed is pretty good to get around, and the fast travel within this like donut town is kind of, it's, the loading is so quick that it's just pause, menu, click, boom, you're there. But I mean, again, if they broke it into zones and you use like the train that you see in the beginning to even get here, and you're kind of traveling around the town via like trolley or something, that could be kind of neat. But literally, rooftop navigation is annoying because you can't jump. The scaffolding is annoying because you can't jump, and you have to go on these little on ramps. Like they may as well have just made the character like sit in a wheelchair for the whole thing, because that's kind of how he navigates. And because of this too, there's a lot of like little hangups on some places where you walk through little rock areas, and it's just kind of like, oh, what the hell am I stuck on? And it's like, oh, there's a slight incline. It's like, oh, but like, yeah, he doesn't need to like Spider-Man up a wall or anything, but I don't understand the point of having these teleporter pads and ladders when they do the same thing. You should just pick one, and since you have scaffolding everywhere, then you may as well have just went with ladders anyways and just ignored the electric thing, because there isn't any benefit. It probably takes almost the same amount of time just to trigger the, do you want to use this? Okay. And then they dissolve and then teleport, than just climbing the ladder. And I would like to be able to catch a ladder in mid-fall. If I can jump over there and press A and grab the ladder, like I might slide down a little bit, but then you can have some level design where there's a short ladder across, so you have to time to jump and grab it. But I mean, I think the most platforming you even do in this game is in the end sequence when they somehow built scaffolding around the entire center area.
Yeah, it's so, and my biggest thing is that like on top of the Mega Rock things, which that's a collectible in the game, it just makes the city, which is already dull as we already discussed, just look so ugly with all these like gross out of place rock formations and these like eyesores of scaffolding everywhere. The city's just kind of ugly. I don't like being here. It's not some place I'd want to be. I'm kind of getting away from the point, but when it comes to the traversal, here's the biggest thing, right? In past Pokemon games, to explore the world, you had to use HM moves, which were these moves that you taught your Pokemon that would let you to surf on water, move big boulders, cut down trees, yada yada. Now, they were kind of annoying because for whatever reason, they had this mechanic to where they weren't easily forgotten, so they would always take up a move slot for your Pokemon, which is kind of annoying for the more useless ones like Cut or Rock Smash. So eventually they kind of got rid of them in like Sun and Moon, where you had like these rideable Pokemon you could call that would do all this stuff for you. Then Sword and Shield, we also downgraded again to where kind of your bike does everything important now, and there's no real obstacles out in the open world. Then in Scarlet and Violet, we kind of had Miraidon and Koraidon, which was like an all-in-one Pokemon that could traverse the entire world. This is kind of the one point I will give a point to Scarlet and Violet. Exploring the world on your Koraidon and Miraidon, especially once it was fully upgraded, is way more enjoyable than moving around in Pokemon Legends ZA. Way, way more enjoyable. To when now we're in ZA, it's like, well, your phone can make you jump a little bit, I guess. It's like, why instead of teleporter pads, I don't have Pokemon that I can ride? Why can't I? Why, if my Pokemon can fly or jump, they should just be able to pick me up and bring me over here. Why can't my Pokemon do this for me? Like, let me interact with my Pokemon. Let my Pokemon be part of my Pokemon adventure. Like, let them help me. That's what they used to do. And now it's just your phone and some ugly scaffolding everywhere and some stupid teleporters. And like, this is just so impersonal. And as a side note, because I know no one's going to really complain about this except for me, when it comes to making your journey more personable, before we used to have this thing in 3DS games called Pokemon Ami, where you could individually interact with your Pokemon as far as like petting them or feeding them treats, giving them a bath, playing mini games with them. You grow closer with them, and it's just fun little interactions to make you have a more personal connection with your Pokemon. They took that out. What did they replace it with? Well, in Sword and Shield, we got the camp set, which was kind of fun. Kind of similar concept. You can still interact with your Pokemon. You can give them baths. You can throw a ball out, watch them play with each other, make curry, and you all have like a meal together. It's kind of like the anime where like Ash and friends would stop and camp out, and Brock would make them some food, and then you just have a nice little wholesome like camp out with your Pokemon, and that's what I like. And then in Scarlet and Violet, we had the less personal, horrible picnic sandwich minigame, which is somehow less of a cool, exciting experience than the camping with the curry was in Sword and Shield. And now in this game, You can get coffee with your Pokemon, except you can't even order them food. You just get coffee or a snack and they just have to sit there and watch you eat it. And they just stand there. It's so awkward. I'm just like, why can't I just order something for my Pokemon? Why can't I have, like, there's restaurants, but you don't order food. You just fight people. It's like, why can't I sit down in a restaurant with my Pokemon and have like a cute little wholesome cutscene or something, like a photo op? Just let me feel like I'm having like a life. Like, let my Pokemon be involved with me instead of just being tools for war. Like, another side note, Pokemon Champions, competitive Pokemon also ruined that.
You can do the nice photo mode with your Pokemon, but you sit on a bench and they awkwardly stare at you, like they surround you and they just look at you just deadpan, and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, it's terrible. And like the closest we have to the campsite mechanic is like you can sit on a bench and then crowd the street with your giant Pokemon and then like inconvenience everyone's lives as you're just staring at your Pokemon. You can't pet them, you can't give them treats, you can't give them a bath, you can stare at them. And it's just like, oh, that's terrible. Like, that's so awful. Like, I'm in a city with like let me just do stuff with my Pokemon, man. Like, why? Like, every game feels like a step backwards. Like, we peaked in 3DS era, I swear to God. But so sorry, that went on a completely different tangent than I meant it to. But like I said, I felt like I was probably the only one that really had hangups about that, something like that in particular. But yeah, that's how I would solve it. Let me use my Pokemon to traverse the world. Like it would be so much better. But yeah, overall exploration in this game that has a heavy emphasis on it's terrible. So next big topic, the wild zones, how we catch Pokemon. How do we add Pokemon to our team? It's like, well, you might be thinking to yourself, in the past Pokemon games and even in Legends Arceus, you're outside in the open world where wild creatures are supposed to be. So how do you catch Pokemon in a city? Well, to their credit, you can catch some that you would expect to be in a city. Like there's Pidgeys and Fletchlings. There's just birds flying around. You can catch them. Just abduct the random fucking creatures off the street, and some random other ones. But largely, we have the wild zones, which ever since the trailers, I always thought were a terrible idea. They're basically, I guess you could consider them mini like parks in a city. How kind of, we have like Central Park in like New York City and stuff like that, like just natural zones inside of a city. That Pokemon have propagated, except they're not natural. As the game progresses, they just kind of invade places that weren't made for them, and they just stay that way. And how I would describe it, and how I described it in the trailer, I think I even said it on the podcast at some point, is you going into the zoo and then abducting the lion and then just leaving with it. Because it's just like, oh, they're just here for me to catch. It's kind of, I don't like it. The wild zones are weird. Some of them are nice. Some of them are generally kind of interesting that look like Pokemon are supposed to be here, but it's just random sections of the map that's like, this is where the wild Pokemon are. It's like, because we don't know how to naturally fit enough Pokemon into a city setting, which granted, I don't think you could. Because it's like, how do you get ice Pokemon in here? It's like, well, one of the wild zones is randomly just a winter wonderland, because why not? And one of them's just like a bunch of sand, because why not? Because that's where you catch the ground Pokemon at. It's really awkward. It doesn't fit well. Ever since the trailers, I thought these were a bad idea. Let's see. We'll start with Jordan this time. Jordan, you don't have to go into super detail if you don't have a lot of opinions on it, but compared to how you found Pokemon kind of like naturally in the wild and other Pokemon games you've played compared to going into these wild zones, like how do you feel about it? If anything, if you even cared.
I didn't really pay too much attention to it just because it was, again, something that I was just doing. I wasn't really focused much on like how things should play out, like if this needs to be placed out in the wild or anything like that. So I just kind of ran with it. But if it was really based on my opinion of what I would prefer, I don't know. I kind of feel like it almost should be like that sense of typical games where you enter a city and the city is just for maybe your typical buying items, testing your Pokemon, maybe doing those kind of, I can't remember which game it was, or maybe it was this game, like where you're able to like bring your Pokemon out to like do these contests, which is like, what's the prettiest Pokemon? And you do like a little like, you bring your Pokemon in there.
You're thinking of Ruby and Sapphire and Diamond and Pearl.
Okay, Ruby and Sapphire. Yeah, something like that. That was kind of cute. It was something that was kind of funny. You got the cutest Pokemon or something like that, and you go to compete or something. Maybe that would be the setting where you could have the city for, and it doesn't need to be big. It could be something small, and there's things in there that'll bring you to the city per se. But I would prefer it being kind of like how Arceus was, where you're just like out in the wild, you go outside and that's where the Pokemon is, kind of like how real life is, I guess. You walk outside, there's an actual animal. It's not going to be in your home. So it's kind of weird how they have these kind of blocked off settings where it's like got this weird force field around it, so nothing can go out, but you can go in. So it's weird, but I kind of like at the same time was not sure if that was what everybody was okay with at the time, because it's something different. So I just like that I was able to get to the Pokemon right away. I just didn't like how the settings were, because it just didn't make any sense to me. It was a little confusing.
I think this ties back into what I was saying about the lack of detail, like makes the setting less believable, because the wild zones are just impractical. Like they don't exist like that. The scaffolding, the rocks, like this city's in chaos, man. Can you imagine trying to go to work one day? It's like, oh, great, a pack of lions made their freaking den on the way to work. Now I got to go all the way around. I have to get a taxi to go take the fucking I-9 all the way over there. It's going to take me 30 more minutes to get to work. We can't get these freaking lions out of here. It just feels that way with all these like wild zones blocked off. I'm like, this city is in chaos, man. There's like just wild creatures roaming around that'll just maul people if you walk into these hologram zones. Like, get them out of here. It doesn't feel natural. It just feels wrong. So like again, this is going a bit beyond it because this is adding a whole different part of the game. But yeah, wouldn't it be cool if we had like again Monster Hunter kind of zones where we went outside of Luminos into maps where we caught the Pokemon, then we come back into the city to participate in the tournament and all the mega battles and stuff like that, and then went back out to catch more Pokemon, so having all these nonsense wild zones. Anyways, Edwin, what do you think about it?
It was not that great. Like some of the wild zones like actually make sense, but for the most part, it was like I don't understand why some of these Pokemon would be in this section. Like, oh yeah, the graveyard. It was like obviously ghost types. It was like the only area with the water. It was like, oh, there's some water types here. And then it's just like in the beginning area, there's sheep just hanging on the road. And another part is like there's an entire like street like an entire three-way street block just covered in ghost pumpkins and giant bee drills. It was like, why? It doesn't make any sense. It was like, as you said, it was like if well, it's like the way that you could have actually done it is like it would still be like in the same way as X and Y, where it's just like each it was like as Corey said, it was like make each area segmented in different areas, so that way each one would have its own theme. But it's like like in X and Y, I was like, there's each gate for each section, and then it would lead you to somewhere different. I was like, it doesn't even have to be like as like expansive as X and Y, just like an area. It's like an outside of the city where you can do whatever you want because there's like it's an open world and you have to implement it into the city. Like it was like even in friggin' Zootopia of all things, like their city makes more sense than this one, whereas it has to accommodate for each type of environment. Like they could have done it that way, but no, it's like it doesn't make any sense. And like as you said, the six lions like in one area, which is surprisingly like very compact, is like doesn't make any sense. It was like, why would you even allow this, especially when they're always aggressive and so many of them? It's like, it just doesn't make any sense at all.
As we saw in the story, there is no government. There is no anyone that's actually looking after the city. The underground city mafia has to be the ones to do anything about it because, like, there's no law enforcement. There's no anyone. There's like this. Like this, the world doesn't feel real. Good. And again, it's not real isn't realistic, but real isn't believable. It's not. It doesn't. It's all just nonsense.
I mean, it would make more sense if they had like the sewer underworld and like the overworld, and then like skyscraper like areas, like I guess kind of like in Zelda, the Tears of the Kingdom, where it's like, well, if you don't want to expand it in like by width, you can expand it by height. We're just making different layers, and each layer is expansive, and each layer is expansive in its own right, and it has like more diverse areas for like each like handful of Pokemon types. That probably would have been better.
Yeah. Like I said, some of them make sense. You have like a construction yard zone. That's where all the steel and some electric Pokemon hang out. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. You know, you have ones that are like actual supposed to be parks where just like some random grass types and stuff make their homes. Like, yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, as you said, we just have a bunch of lions somewhere. We have like dang it, I just had one in my head, but there's a couple ones where it just feels like really random that these Pokemon are just hanging out here. That ice one especially really bothers me because it's just this winter wonderland just stuck in the middle of the city for some reason. But anyways, Corey, how do you feel about it?
The wild zones, I don't know. Like I think that they don't necessarily need to be incorporated this way. if the story is about like, oh, we got random wild Pokemon running around town, it's like just let that happen in town, and then let's segment this wild zones to be things that you do outside of the town. Then we could have this like walking through the forest or going to like a snowy mountain or whatever. And I don't need to traverse there like Scarlet and Violet. We could just catch a train or something, because the train at the beginning is only used at that time when you're coming here. So why not be like, oh, the train station, come down here and then we'll get a ride over to these like small hub areas of nature where it might, and it doesn't really change the story that much, considering that you still do your gym battles here, you still do the night city fights here in the battle zones, and then you have your random like, oh, the mega Pokemon aren't supposed to be here. You can still do that, and then they can hand tailor these environments a little bit better. But because this story kind of takes you on these insert story beats here to a rooftop battle or a battle in an alley or a battle in the sewer or something, like I think it's just more like level design could have been better here. I see what they're doing and I like it in the sense of how they use it already for the battle zones at night, because they're exactly the same thing except for one of them only happens at nighttime and the other one is just there to catch Pokemon.
Yeah, it's like I've already said most of my complaints about it. But yeah, it's not intuitive. It's not believable. It's just not fun. Like I'm sensing a theme here, but it almost feels like they're one or two steps away from making this amazing, but they just kind of wussied out and just like threw stuff in there for the sake of it being in there. Because even like how Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl kind of fix again, people really hate on those games, which I can see in some aspects, but maybe one day I'll make a video myself telling about how I'm going to defend those games. But Diamond and Pearl's biggest problem is like type variety. And they're like, oh, where can we stuff some Pokemon? And it's like, put them in the underground. It's like, that was a great idea. That was like one of the best expansions about that game, is like expanding the type variety by putting a bunch of Pokemon in the underground. And they had to make whole new zones for that. Oh my God, new content. They had to go a little extra farther. That's crazy. But yeah, it's just, the catching. Oh, so moving on to the, parallel to the catching Pokemon. I don't know if anyone but me and maybe Edwin would have noticed this, but compared to Arceus, catching Pokemon is not as fluid as it was in Arceus. In Arceus, you can use your Pokeballs, and they had like real physics to them in the sense that like if you angled it right, you can get your Pokeballs to fly farther. And if you hit the Pokemon, it's gonna try and catch it. Especially with like the flight balls that will shoot straight. It's almost like you're sniping them, and they can go quite a ways before they'll like lose their distance and drop. The Pokeballs in ZA have a hard cutoff line to where they will not work anymore. They have to be in range of your throwing, and you can't freehand it, because I can tell you, if you cannot lock on to the Pokemon, there's a high likelihood that your Pokeball will just phase through them and not work, even if you saw it hit them on your screen. Like there's some weird mechanics they changed to how Pokeball throws work, and it really aggravates me. Because it's like I can hit them from here, I can angle it perfectly, but the Pokeball will just phase through the Pokemon because I wasn't locked on, and it hit that hard cutoff point to where the Pokeball basically just ceases to exist, so it just flies through the Pokemon. I don't know if any of y'all had.
I probably didn't notice because it was so frustrating. It was like catching Pokemon in this game was not fun, and that's a huge negative for a monster catching game.
Yeah, and I'll if I have time, I'll talk about with the DLC about that later. But yeah, completing the Pokedex in here was a little bit more frustrating than it was in Arceus. In Arceus, you have to do a bunch of mini games for each Pokemon. I find that way more enjoyable than how you do it in this game. But anyways, with that, and that honestly largely rounds about the main gameplay loops of the game between battling, exploration, and catching Pokemon. Like I said, we're not talking about story. We can have a whole episode of just about how stupid the story is. Just know it's bad. Anyways, so that being said, I alluded to those leaks earlier and how this game used to be a gold and silver game, but apparently, according to those leaks as well, they cut out mini games. They cut out rideable Pokemon. They cut out advanced parkour mechanics. They've cut out a lot of content for this game. Don't know if it was a deadline thing. Don't know if it was a money-saving venture. All I know is that it was wrong. Because something that we keep talking about, it keeps coming back up over and over and over in each conversation we're having, is it just feels like there could have been more here. And for the franchise that is the highest money earner in anything, you just feel like you could go that 1 or 2 steps further just to make something really good here. Like maybe not, it's not perfect, but it would be way more enjoyable. A lot of critics about this game kind of shadow what we say. The game had generally good reviews when it came out, above averages, but it was largely this. It's like battling's fun, everything else sucks for the most part. I'm really exaggerating how dumbed down that is. But that being said, like I said this earlier, but it seems like this was a big hit with the fans, and I can't help but feel that was because Scarlet and Violet was so bad that since this was the game that immediately followed it, it's like, oh, I've been eating dog food for years. This piece of stale bread tastes like, a 5-course filet mignon than what I've been eating for the last few years, Maybe I'm in the minority on that because, like I said, I don't think the game is horrible, but the more I sit on it, the more I dislike it, the more I don't want to play it again. For those of you, I'll leave you out of this, Jordan, because like I said, you were a special case, but do you feel that way, Edwin and Corey? Do you feel like that theory holds any merit to why this game is generally more favored despite all this stuff we've been bringing up about how it could have been better?
I feel like it's just like the current theme that the Game Freak is doing, where it's just like subpar to like not. It's like doing better in some things and doing worse in others, just to keep it in like a medium. So that way, it's just like expectations are too high, and the delivery isn't as low. But it's just a concerning thing for like future games where it's like, well, now you don't have to model like every single Pokemon because now you're purposely cutting out Pokemon from the entire Pokedex. But it's just like even then, it's like even after you said it was like, oh, it takes too much time to model over 1,000 Pokemon. It was like, but you're not adding over 1,000 Pokemon. You cut that much time down by only having like less than a quarter of them and putting them in the game, and then you still don't have enough time to actually fully deliver what like all the promises and like everything that you planned. Like this game could have been better, but for some reason you still somehow didn't make the deadline. It was like it definitely the Pokemon games are definitely not top priority for Game Freak.
Got anything to add, Corey?
Like overall thought?
Well, it's more like it's like I said, that this game seems to be generally favorably viewed because it's coming off the back of Scarlet and Violet, which are so heinously hated for the most part. Do you think this game is getting away with a lot more than it probably would have had those games not existed?
Yeah, I think if Scarlet and Violet landed better, then this probably would have been under fire. I mean, it was just basically like, here's a game that runs smooth and has fun combat. And you're like, oh, wow. But that should be like a standard, right? Because Scarlet and Violet, though, runs smooth on Switch 2. It dropped on the original Switch. And so we opened it up and I was like, what is this? This looks like a blank Unity project with the terrain editor. There's like no trees. You can't see any grass. The draw distance is terrible. And then you get this game where the biggest complaint was the town's not modeled. The modeling detail of the town isn't that high. I think that it's almost like getting away with murder here because it's very small, but it's a neat experience. But I don't find myself wanting to come back to play it again. And it's kind of like an appetizer of things to come, I guess, especially with Winds and Waves finally being announced.
The thing is, though, is that I've been saying that ever since Sword and Shield came out, and it just keeps getting worse. Arceus, to me, is the best thing that they've made on the Switch, maybe next to Diamond and Pearl, Shining Diamond and Brilliant Diamond, or whatever. But I know I'll be crucified for most people for that, but also I guess I'm not people like Arceus either, so whatever. I can be right and they can be wrong. Anyways, I'm going to talk really, really fast about the DLC because I really want to fit this in somewhere. Edwin, if you want to say something about the DLC after I'm finished, go ahead and speak up. But basically, the DLC is this. If I had a nickel for every time Nintendo has taken the post-game for a game, cut it out, turned it into a DLC post-launch, I'd have 2 nickels, but it's weird that it happened twice. This happened with Donkey Kong Bonanza, and now it's happening again with Pokemon. Not only was it controversial because they announced this DLC's existence before the game even came out, which we're not going to hang up on that, but that is a horrible business practice. I can't believe they got away with that. But they did. a couple months after the game came out, Mega Dimensions came out, which added more Pokemon. As Edwin said, they don't have a lot of, like, not a whole lot of Pokemon in this game, but I think about 200-ish, I think. Now, my opinion on that is that I actually prefer having less Pokemon because I like using different Pokemon, but that's, again, different topic. Moving on. So they added more Pokemon, a couple more Mega Evolutions, and basically what they did is make these little portals that you can go into, helping Diantha's daughter try and find Rayquaza, and you're dealing with more Mega Evolution nonsense. It's a roguelike, or at least roguelike elements. You collect berries to give donuts to this Pokemon Hoopa that can open up these dimension holes, and you have little missions you do in each one of them, and it's fun for a while until you get to the end of the DLC, because you learn very quickly that in order to complete the Pokedex, this is what you have to do. Kind of like how you get challenger tickets in the main game by doing a bunch of battle arenas till you have enough points. You have to keep doing these rifts, these dimension holes, and getting enough points to open up special dimension holes. This is far after the DLC is completed, by the way. The story, again, the story in the DLC is much better than the main game, but it's still just like kind of a lot of nothing. It's not worth talking about, but just know it is a lot better. Anyways, so you get a bunch of points by going into, I don't know, 3 or 4 of these holes that you do a bunch of mini missions into that you have about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on the type of donut you use, to complete. You do that like 3 or 4 times, and then you get a call from the Rust Syndicate being like, hey, we can open up a dimension hole. So you fast travel to their organization, go through a loading screen into the entrance, then you go from that entrance to another loading screen into the main office, go to the back, talk to the guy to use the special scan. He does a special scan, and then he can either open up a special wild zone or a special battle zone. Now it's like, well, why is that bad? Why Udon? Why are you saying that sounds bad? It's like, well, it's like this. There's a couple of Pokemon exclusive to these 5-star. It's a star system, by the way. It's these 5-star dimension holes that are required to complete the Pokedex. Not only a handful of legendary Pokemon like Meloetta and Keldeo and Latios and Latias, but just random Pokemon, like kind of like the Baxcalibur trio or the evolution line. It is complete random chance to get these holes and no way to manipulate the outcome. So let me put it this way. After getting that hole, and I have to go back to pass those 2 loading screens, back outside, fast travel to the dimension hole, you cannot reset it. You have to complete it. And then once you complete it, your points go back down to 0. And then I have to spend another 15 minutes going through a bunch of other dimension holes, getting the points, going back through the loading screens to spawn another fucking hole that may or may not have the thing I'm looking for. And if it's a battle dimension hole, I'm just SOL because they're worthless. There's no point in doing them. I'm looking for the wild zone holes, and it's complete random chance whether they spawn or not. There's no way to manipulate it. There's no way to re-roll it. As soon as you get the points, it is decided right then and there what hole you're going to get. I'm saying hole a lot today, but it drove me crazy. This was the first time I gave up on completing a Pokedex in a new Pokemon game. I said, I'm going to wait until Pokemon Home compatibility comes to this, and I'm going to transfer all the Pokemon I need over. And I did. And that's how I completed the Pokedex for the DLC, because it is absolutely butt fucking ridiculous that you have to go through like 3 different layers of random nonsense grinding. And it drove me insane. And it just made the game not fun anymore. So the DLC, I think largely as a whole, is fun at first, but quickly devolves into complete garbage. It's so frustrating. Do you have anything to say about the DLC, Edwin?
I mean, I like the concept of it, but the overall like usage of those wormholes and the stupid donut making and roguelike elements, it was just absolutely aggravating, because you cannot. Everything about it is random. The type of Pokemon that are in there, the actual Pokemon that are in there, it doesn't even display like all the Pokemon that you will find in there. So you don't even know if you're gonna find the one type you're looking for. And then also all the berries and items that, depending on the berries that you use, determine the type of donut you're gonna make. That also determine whatever power up and how strong the donut is going to make your Pokemon, so you can fight everything that in there that is over level 100. And it's just absolutely aggravating. And once I actually beat like the actual main story of it, like I mean, I could probably just say it was like after fighting the main villain, which was Mega Darkrai, I was like, I just gave up. I was like, I did not want to play it anymore. It probably would have been better if all that was implemented into the actual main story, because then having those wormholes alongside the wild areas, as the wild areas being permanent while the wormholes being temporary, it probably would have solved the Pokemon variety while not like screwing up the entire city trying to fit all these wild zones in there. If they could fit the concept of DLC with the main story, the overall game probably would have been significantly better.
Yeah, again, needs some TLC. Not to mention when you do all these holes, big emphasis on the parkour aspect, which, as we discussed, is not fun, which makes them largely not fun. But anyways, we only have a few minutes left here, so we're gonna go around, give your quick final thoughts, give the game a quick score, and then we'll move into the conclusion. Okay, so Jordan, you go first.
I will say this game specifically compared to the old one I think is a great game. Again, I have not been able to go through all the different series like you guys have, so I'm definitely changed by how I've gotten through this one. Again, there is things that could be better for sure, but I don't really have much gripes about it. It was something that literally pushed me to the point where I actually felt I had some fun to get all the Pokemon I could to maxing out the game. I did not get to experience the DLC, so I don't really know much about that part. It's just the only thing I was kind of questioned about was when you're like trying to do certain trades. Like specifically when you do a trade, you know that there's going to be certain Pokemon that if you trade them, that's the only way you can get them to evolve to their final form. The only thing that was kind of weird to me was that you had to know a specific code to be able to type in and able to make a trade to get a specific Pokemon. That was kind of weird to me. And I don't remember there being anywhere specifying that you had to put in a code in order for you to get this certain Pokemon to evolve. So there was a lot of things to me that was being left unsaid that made it very confusing. And when I came out to finally beating the boss on this one, myself didn't really feel like I wanted to continue. I felt like I was pretty much done, especially after I've caught all the Pokemon, because there was really nothing there. The place was pretty bland. It was just something to fill in the gaps up until the point of time was when I beat it, and then I was pretty much taken care of. So I would give this game an 8 out of 10, just because again it was a really good change of pace for me for being a very old game to now. If I probably played the other ones, it may have varied the change of what my score would be, but as of right now, that's what I'm looking at.
All righty, Edwin, give a quick conclusion and give it a score.
I mean, it was like I feel like after playing this, I need to like play Scarlet and Violet again, just like because like Scarlet and Violet, like a lot of things about it were mainly technical issues and graphical, which ZA did do better overall. I feel like it was more of a system issue, so playing it Scarlet and Violet on the Switch 2 would probably be better, but the combat in ZA was obviously significantly better. The effects and just the strategy to move around was just more fun. Starting off with the game, I feel like I was having fun. I wanted to continue playing. I was like day after day, but it's like by the end of it, I feel like it's like I stopped enjoying it after I actually did everything, and I just cannot go back to playing the DLC to actually complete it. So I feel like by the time I finished the game, my score went down a little bit. But I think like the overall score would probably maybe a 7 or less, maybe like a 6.5. I was like, I enjoyed the game for the most part, but I can't really see myself playing it again, despite the fact that I was like, I love Mega Evolution, but it's like I just don't want to go through all that again.
All right, Corey, quick conclusion, score, go.
I'm going to give it a 6. I mean, again, it's not the worst game I've ever played. I've played some pretty shitty games over the years. I had a lot of fun while I was playing this, but again, it's like I'm only playing it right now because we're talking about it, but like I don't find myself going like, oh man, I'm going to rebalance the team and run a water team or something like that. Like I just was like, well, it's done. I was enjoying myself. We would talk on Discord while we were all playing it at the time, and it seemed like we were all enjoying it. But when you sit back and reflect on stuff, like right now, I'm playing Pragmata, and I'm thinking about like I'm going to go play it again after we're done talking about this because that game is amazing. But this is just kind of it was a thing, and I enjoyed it, but it's over. So moving on.
My take on it: I'm a huge Pokemon fan. I want better for my favorite series. I'm still here for it, but that's why I criticize it so heavily, is because I want it to be better. It was one of those things where, again, I agree with most people here. I was having fun with it at first. Shiny hunting is the easiest it's ever been. Different criticism. But I was having fun doing that. I was having fun with the post game, but then the DLC came out, and then it starts getting worse and worse and worse. And the more I sat on it and thought about the game, the more I disliked it. And then they re-released Fire Red and Leaf Green on the Switch, and then I played those, and I was reminded of older Pokemon and why I liked them so much. And my opinion just kept souring and souring and souring. I would give it a 4 because I have no desire to play it again at all. It'll probably never touch it again after this. Almost 200 hours in. I mean, it's like, did I hate it? Not necessarily. But as we discussed here today, it's like I realized how much potential this game had and how much they didn't have to go super far to get something really special here, especially after the blunder of Scarlet and Violet, to just kind of like stumble into like, oh, hey guys, I didn't break my neck this time. Are you proud of me? It's like, I guess Arceus is better. But yeah, I'd give it a 4, maybe pushing a 5, but I don't even think I'm there yet. But anyways, sorry for the little bit of rushed ending here. There's more to we could keep talking about it. Maybe we do a part 2 someday. Maybe I'll just record something myself to do some issues that I otherwise had about the game. But anyways, thank you for joining us today. We've been wanting to talk about this for a while. I think next time we're going to be talking about Batman Arkham Asylum. Anyway, book club's going to be back. Putting Memory Card on hold for a little bit for just workload reasons. But anyways, like I said, glad you guys joined us today. Hope you liked the discussion. If anything, let us know what your thoughts are, because I know I have kind of abrasive opinions to a lot of people in the Pokemon community on some stuff. But anyways, but yeah, thanks for listening. Don't forget to keep exploring, keep playing, and keep listening. We are the Mediocre Rumble Brothers podcast, and we will see you in the next one.
Team Pig.
Didn't mind it.
Sword and Shield's still better.
Hey, this is Corey, and thanks for checking out Mediocre Rumble Brothers. If you liked the video, please drop a like, and if you didn't, that's fine too. If you'd like us to talk about any specific games, drop a comment below, or feel free to discuss your experience with the games that we mentioned in the episode. You can also listen to our episodes prior to YouTube on our Spotify. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.